Nikkiana Jones.
Nikkiana Jones reached out to me and asked if I wanted to sit down and talk. I said, why not? She's got a great channel, lots of cool stuff, and no topic is off limits. I hope you enjoy this one.
Nikkiana Jones.
Okay, guys. Hi, this is John from UFO on the Level. So, welcome.
How you doing?
Actually, how do you say your last name? It's a cool last name. It's like
it's Majerowski. It's just how it looks. It's Majerowski. Yeah.
Majerowski. Okay, I like that.
Thanks.
Is that Polish or Russian?
Yeah, it's Polish. Well, they tell me it's Polish. I don't know if they want me to believe it's Russian or not. But that was my family said that they finally moved out of Poland because Russia kept taking over the part where we lived. So it was always being like, hey, we're Poland one day, and now we're Russia, and now we're Poland one day, and we're now Russia. And finally they said, fuck it, we're out. So they came to America. So I'm sure it was Russian at some point we were in there. But yeah, it's interesting. I tried to do genealogy, and it's like I can't find anything because everybody was just
everywhere.
Everywhere on the Polish side.
23andMe thing, and it was it's also kind of, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're kind of fairly new to the YouTube game, right? Like you've been doing this less than a year, but I love your subject matter. I think I watched most of your videos. I think it's you have really honest, great conversations with people. So what provoked this for you? Like, why did you go, okay, I want to get into, I mean, for me, how I found you is on UFO Twitter. And I watched the YouTube video that you did with Patricia Advent, the first one.
Oh, yeah.
And I was, and I loved her, and I loved you guys. Your conversation was great. So I reached out to actually both of you. So, I don't know. So tell me, how did you get on this UFO journey?
Well, I've been on the UFO journey my whole life, actually. But like specifically how I got into the YouTube thing, and then I got into the, UFO Twitter was, I think it was George Knapp, I think at one point was talking on Coast to Coast one night or something. And it was like, UFO Twitter is this whole thing. And he was talking about, how there's, researchers out there mixed with regular people, mixed with government agents, mixed with just everybody, people who say they're aliens and just all kinds of stuff. Right. So I was like, I got to get into this. I was on Twitter before, but I really didn't engage anything. I was just kind of there because I do information security. So there's a lot of stuff that comes up, real frequent things that are happening, in the InfoSec world, like, hey, watch out, this ransomware is on the loose, kind of watch out. So I kind of kept up with that, but I never really dove into it for Twitter. So when I got into it, I was like, wow, this is rad. And I was just checking out, basically just watching, I wasn't really engaging a lot. And then I started adding a little bit here and there, just my opinions or what I thought or things like that. And there's a guy that reached out to me by the name of James Ian Doley. And he's got an awesome platform called Engaging the Phenomenon. I don't know if you've seen him at all, but he's an awesome dude. And he just was like, hey, man, he's like, you should do a YouTube channel. I'm like, why? I'm like, just some dude, I'm out here talking. He's like, no, I think you really got a different perspective than a lot of people, being a Freemason and some of the stuff that's going on. He's like, there's a big esoteric part that people have really even talked about and they really haven't, delved into. So I was like, well, I don't know, man. He's like, well, listen, dude, just do this thing where he does Ask Twitter, where basically he's just like, hey, Ask Twitter. And, he's like, just submit me a video, like 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever, about this topic. And I was like, I don't know, man. So I had my iPhone set up on the corner or something. And it was like if you look back now, it's like the crappiest video I ever did. And it was just like, me chatting it up. And but James was like holding my hand literally the whole way. Like, do this, man. You should do it. And I'm like, I don't know. So I did it. It was like, pandemic was going on. I really didn't have a lot else going on. I was working from home every day. I'm still working from home. And I'm like, well, I'm here. This is kind of what I've been into my whole life. And honest to God, and I say this in almost every video that I've been, if you've watched a couple of them, but before I was really afraid that the black van would show up and just haul me out, like legit. I mean, growing up, like I said, I really grew up with this stuff. My dad, had a couple big sightings when I was, when he was young, and when actually, I wasn't around at the time. So it was the 70s, in 60s. And, he was into it forever then. And then that's how I got into it, because he was just like, this is real. So we were always scooping up videos and doing a bunch of stuff. And, he was just, magazines and all the stuff he can get his hands on. So I just grew up thinking it was real. But back then, legit, I mean, if you talk too much or you saw something somebody didn't want you to see, like people would show up and take your stuff and scare you and tell you to be quiet. And I was like, man, I don't need that in my life. but I was like, fuck it. At this point, there's so many people.
Right.
I mean, UFO Twitter's out there. I mean, and you know, like Bob Lazar came out and he stayed in front of everybody because he's like, I don't want to die. So if I just keep my face out there and I just keep doing it, and you know, I'm just a nobody in it anyway. So I was like, all right, cool. So I just started to talk about it, and I met a lot of cool people, like Patricia Vaughn, amazing woman. You know, I got to meet you. Very cool too. I mean, so yeah, it's been really, really rad. So what about you? How did you get into this whole game?
I mean, kind of similar. It is interesting, that whole concept of like people who have seen UFOs sometimes have family members who have seen UFOs.
Yeah.
Now, my whole family, so my mom has seen UFOs, and actually all 4 of my grandparents have.
Wow.
But I knew about it when I was little, and I've had UFO experiences, and I've actually had crazy, like I've had ghosts, I've had
that's how it started for me. It started for me as ghosts when I was a kid.
Yeah, I had some ghost experiences when I was a kid, and again, shut it off in my puberty, from puberty to like in my 20s, and then all the stuff started coming back in my 30s. But
that's exactly what happened to me too. I shut it off. I shut it off because I was like, I can't handle this shit. And a lady told me you can do it, and I was like, okay. And she was like a ghost, like a lady who wrote, an author, wrote a lot of books, and she's like, look, if you don't want to see it anymore, just turn it off. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, just. And I'm like, okay.
I think for me, I had to really grapple the fear element. I had like, because I was really like I had grandparents I lost 3 grandparents in 1 year when I was 30 years old. That was 8 years old, in 2012. And sorry. I was like, yeah, it sucked. It was weird though. It happened within like in 4 weeks, I lost all 3 of my grandparents. So it's just like when it rains, it pours, right? And I had both my grandmothers like came back to me within 6 months of that, and like were talking to me in like in dream state and like physically seeing them. And then that's like really part of, actually 2012 was just a crazy year for me. I saw a UFO. My mom saw a UFO.
Like actual craft, like a
physical
like craft.
For me, it was I was outside at like 1 a.m. watering plants. I was living in New York, but I was back in, I'm from, my mom lives in Dallas, Texas. And so like I was here in Dallas. That's where I live now. And I was, I don't know, I was watering plants at 1 a.m. I know that's crazy, but anyway, I had a friend over. My mom was out of town, and she had like called me, "Did you water my plants?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, go water your plants." All right. So I'm like outside, I'm like watering her plants, and I look up, and it's almost like there was a helicopter, but it would disappear and appear here, like, and then disappear and appear here. It was like traveling real fast, like where it couldn't have traveled. And it was going all over like the peripheral vision of what I could see in the sky. And I didn't have my iPhone on me. So I didn't want to not look at it because it would be gone by the time I went and came back. So I screamed to my friend. I was like, get my phone. And so she takes her precious time. She gets out there. I've got the wet water hose. I'm like, look at this. Look at this like UFO. And she's like, yeah.
Wow.
Like,
really?
It's probably like a helicopter here, and I'm trying, and then I'm like, okay, I'm trying to film it. Nothing comes out, like it's, whatever. But, and what was amazed me more than the UFO itself was the fact that she didn't give a shit.
So like 90% of the population is that though. They just don't give a shit.
And
Patricia says that too a lot. She says it too. She's like, well, what the fuck is it going to do for me? That's literally a quote from Patricia Vaughn. It's like, that's beautiful. What the fuck are you going to do for me? That's a Patricia Vaughn quote. Like, it's beautiful, but you're going to fucking come down here and help me? Then. Right. So
so then I've been down this rabbit hole, like in all different realms. And I've
seen your videos are all over the place. You're fucking just all over. It's great.
Yeah.
You don't hold back.
I'm really into ancient archaeology.
Right.
I'm really into psychic people and people who are just, like, I don't want to be a channel myself, but I want to talk to these people and be like, what's your experience? Like, I'm very open-minded about everything. Like, I don't think anybody kind of knows one way or the other what's really going on. So I want to hear everybody's perspective and try to kind of see what I can piece together on the subject matter. Because like I'm not I mean, I've gone as far down the rabbit hole of this is a simulation to like there's inner Earth beings. They're not actually out of space, outer space, like that.
Ultra terrestrials, right? Yeah.
Ultra terrestrials, interdimensionals, time travelers. Like what? I mean, I don't know.
So, like it's all of it, man. That's the fun part when you start getting into it. For me, anyways, like we said, we kids were as ghosts, and it's like, oh, somebody died and they're haunting the house, and it's like, well, somebody was talking to me, and the guy doesn't want me to say his name or anything, and he's an all right guy. He's pretty cool, but like, you know, his deal is like he started showing me data where like, all right, here's high paranormal, you know, ghost activity, and then look at the UFO data and you put it right on top of it, and it's like verbatim, like you see any type of line chart, and it's like parallel with it the whole entire way. And it's been like that for years, at least since the 80s or whenever they were keeping these records, you know. And I'm like, it does make a lot of sense, you know. And then you see the Skinwalker Ranch stuff where it's like the whole gamut, right? It's like weird trickster stuff, you know, ghost, that paranormal weird things, poltergeisty things, you know, craft in the sky, portals, like there's everything, right? So I think all of it is, you know, I think it's so weird that it's segmented, and you know, Patricia and I've talked to this in our video too. It's like there's segments within segments, you know, like she was saying. It's like, you know, it's like, oh, you're this kind of Bigfoot person, but not this kind, and you're this kind of UFO person, but not this kind. It's like, man, it's all the same thing. And until we really start hanging out and getting together, and like, it's not going to, you know,
it is
happen.
Weird because, yeah, and you do have people who will be like, oh, I 100% believe in angels and ghosts, but aliens, you're crazy. Or, you know, or vice versa. Like I believe in aliens and UFO craft and Bigfoot, but angels and like other things, like you're crazy. Right. I mean, so like there's and I'm just kind of going like, maybe some of these things are the same stuff that we're labeling different or related somehow that we don't really even know.
Yeah, you know? I agree with that. And I think Tim McMillan or somebody I think said this. I think Tim McMillan said this in one of his videos. I was before the debrief, but maybe it wasn't. But he was like, he had talked to somebody who said, you know, the Roswell crash, the craft or whatever they had in storage or whatever. He said you could go and look at it and it would visually be to you whatever you needed it to be. So if you walked in the room and you saw like a teddy bear on the floor, like that's, you know, whatever, like somebody else would see a big black cube with light shooting out of it, or somebody else would see a disc, and it's like it would present itself to you, whatever it you know, you needed it to be for you to make sense, which is.
See, that's crazy to me. Cause then like, what are we dealing with? Are we dealing with like, yeah, I mean, that kind of reminds me of like that Jerry Willis guy who went through a portal in Lake Titicaca area. It's like what is the name of that place? Like it's called the Gate of the Sun or something. But anyway, I think Linda Moulton Howe had him on one time talking about this. And so he goes through this portal and he's like in a white room with no like edges to anything. It's just like white like a paper as far as you can see. And there's like this voice explaining to, basically it's kind of like a simulation sort of theory type thing. But then I actually have personal friends who went to that same portal with like some sort of shamanic thing, and they had a completely different experience that was like they saw like some sort of weird sun god thing that like had like a whole headdress, and it looked like it was melting with like liquid gold and stuff, and it told them it was raw. But they both were in the same exact spot, like supposedly going through the same portal, but had completely different experiences. So
that's, I mean, so to me, that's how I always thought it is. Like, you know, when you saw that helicopter thing, was it a helicopter, or was it like, oh, this chick will think we're a helicopter if we present ourselves as a helicopter? You know what I mean? Like, is this what it needs to be for us to make sense? You know, when
well, that's why I think that black helicopter, you know, the black helicopter that shows up with no markings, like I think that's a UFO.
It's because it's just hiding, you know, hiding in plain sight. But then again, what the hell do I know?
Okay, so the Freemason thing. Oh wait, what were you going to say before that? You were on a train of thought.
Well, what I was thinking is like, you know, maybe there's so much disinformation, and I see it more often than not. And just knowing a little bit about how the government works and the programs and things like that. I mean,
like there's the voice of God, there's like
Blue Beam, and there's, I mean, I've talked to guys that said that they were in Iraq, actually Afghanistan. No, was it Iraq? I think it was the first or second. It was this first or second Iraq war. I'm sorry, I got some friends that were in both, but one of them said that they had Blue Beam. It wasn't called Blue Beam, whatever it was, but it was giant scorpions, right? And there was like a front of guys they were trying to go up against, but they projected like giant scorpions coming at them, and these dudes dropped all their guns and just ran, and that was it. And it was like we didn't have to fire a shot. That's just the kind of how that shit works, like other ones would have like Allah show up to them in the middle of the night in their camp and be like, you're going to have to drop all your guns and you're done. And everybody comes out the next day and they're like, okay, we're done. So I got to believe that the government has I know they have the ability, but I got to believe they've used it, in theaters like that. So what could it be? I mean, that could be used everywhere all the time for any of us, really. But I mean, is it that? Is it trying to manage the message? Is it trying to push us till we think it's aliens when it's not? I mean, I don't know. Sorry. I just went on a tangent.
Yeah, no, I mean, I actually think that there's something to that. I mean, I had in 2008, I was in India, and I was at this place called it was called the Sadhana Forest, but it was within Oroville, experimental city where like money's not allowed, religion's not allowed, cars aren't allowed.
Really?
Like it's like 50,000 people from all over the world. It was this guy named Aurobindo who was kind of like the J.K. Rowlings of like the 1900s, and he died without any heirs. So they used his money to physically build the utopia that he used to write about.
Holy shit! I've never heard of this.
Yeah, it's called Oroville, like your aura, like Oroville. It's cool. It's a little cultish. It's a little weird, but it's worth checking out. Anyway, so I'm there, and I had these blue light balls come in from the window, like as if the window wasn't there, and they were like basketballs, and then they elongated to like watermelon size. 2 were on this side of me, 2 were on this side of me, and I was dead asleep. It was like 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. And it felt like, how you're diving too far underneath the water and you need to like blow your nose. That pressure, like that physical pressure woke me up. And then there was my friend was in the bed. We had 2 twin beds, and she was in the other twin bed. And I was like, Amy. And I was trying to wake her up because like these light balls are right by me. And then they kind of like paralyzed me to where I couldn't speak. And so I'm like sitting up on my bed, like looking at them, and then they start talking to me telepathically. And they don't talk to me in English. They just gave me like movies, like they would just project a whole bunch of information. So like the order of things was weird. Anyway, at the time I had just learned about the voice of God and stuff before that happened. So even then I had a hard time being like, I don't know if this is like, maybe I'm a targeted individual. Like maybe like I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to believe or not to believe, so even my own experiences, I have to sometimes like take them with a grain of salt and be like, it is possible that this stuff, even though I do believe within my own experience, it feels like it's happening. It could be manipulated to me.
Oh yeah. And, I always think that too, but I think there's a vast majority of people that have these experiences that just don't say anything. I mean, I think you and I have the balls to say it, to be able to do it and get out there. There's like 98% of the people that won't say it to anybody because of the stigma behind all of it. Like, I don't want to think people are crazy.
My sister is like, you have cognitive dissonance and you are crazy.
Wow.
Like she's just like, yeah, like you're super. I mean, I have a ton of people in my life who are like, dude, you lost your mind.
Need to get some help. Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, well, then like you and I are going to go on different paths, man, because I want to talk about this stuff. I'm sick of being repressed about it all the time.
Yeah, no, it's good. And it's good that I mean, and I hate to say that, I mean, Patricia and I have talked about this too, but there's like a lack of women in this field completely. Like there's zero, I mean, in scale wise, right? I mean, for every woman, there's 200 basement dweller dudes out there that are just like, for it's
me,
terrible.
I feel like a large part of that is there seems to be like your story is only valid if you're a military personnel, a military personnel or a pilot. if the pilots, and I'm a flight attendant, so you know, if the or that was my day job, but anyway, like if a pilot sees it, then it's valid, you know, or if a military guy talks about it, okay, otherwise, you know, you're not credible. And I think there's that stigma needs to
go away.
Yeah, it really does. Because that's only one perspective too. And for me, I also kind of have the whole feeling of, well, I don't know, for me, I'm getting to a point where I'm more interested in like these crazy experiences, like the one like the blue balls, or like the bleed
blue balls is not a good experience. I'm just, as a man, I just had to put that out there, you know. You set that one up on the T-ball for me, and I just sorry.
But you know, okay.
Yeah, no, totally. Because I had like the orange balls, all right? So what does that mean? Yeah. Like, is your blue balls different than my orange balls? I don't know. I think the orange balls are the gateway drug to UFOs. I think people see orange balls.
So many people see the orange orbs.
Yeah. What is that?
Like, what is that? Yeah.
I don't know.
And I don't know how many times I've heard about the orange orbs, but like I have so many friends who've talked about that and seen that. And
why? I don't know.
I've seen the Marfa lights, which
Texas, yeah.
Yeah, in Texas. Like I saw those actually recently. There definitely was some orange orbs, but I don't think I've seen the kind of orange orbs that you guys are talking about. Blue ones, but not orange ones. Yeah. But anyway, the thing is like, I think that you have, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't know. I just kind of feel like, I don't know. People are, at this point, I'm not convinced, or I don't have to convince you whether or not UFOs are real or not. Right. At this point, it's a choice whether or not you want to get into this, because there's enough evidence. Like, so if I'm still having to like tell you about all the different evidence, then you're not really that interested.
No, I mean, it's the choice. We go full circle back to what we were talking about earlier, where you can just turn it off. And I think a majority of people just turn it off because they're afraid. The stigma, there's a religion thing behind it. There's their family. There's all these other things. People are just like, you know what? Maybe I am kind of interested. Maybe I see something I can't explain. You know, if there wasn't two other people with me or somebody else with me, I'm not going to say anything, because I just don't even want to go there. I got bills to pay. I got a job. I got kids, like people are just like, I'm too busy with life. You know, I don't think and honestly, we've said this before too. I was like, I don't think anybody's really interested or cares unless something has actually happened to them, unless they physically experience. But that's true for anything though, right? Like, homelessness or, hunger or anything. Like if you haven't experienced those things, you're like, how do you care about it in a way that's meanful? You know what I mean? So it's hard for a lot of people, but it's interesting to, for me, it's like, I tell my wife, it's like, this is my hobby. Like some people watch Dancing with the Stars or whatever. Like, this is what I like to do, like, I'm not saying I believe everything I read. I'm not saying I believe everything everybody says, but sometimes you can sniff out the truth from the crap, and you can meet cool people and, make friends all over and that are kind of in the same thing. And, maybe you can get to a point where you're like, hey, through all this research, we've kind of, put everything together and maybe we figured something out. And if not, at least we had a good time, whatever.
Well, I definitely have been good at discerning, like, okay, that's a missile. Do you see when it's spiraling like that? That's like a missile test. Like, I can sort of get to where I can point out like what's going, or be like, no, I think that might actually be drones. Sorry.
Yeah. But, right.
Okay. But back to the craft, I didn't finish this point.
Yeah.
Was, I feel like I'm less interested in, even though I have seen the military like triangle craft, or like kind of like the tic-tac-toe UFO or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm less interested in these
physical
medical art. Yeah.
Nuts and bolts. The nuts and bolts. Yeah.
The nuts and bolts of it. Because I feel like that is way easier to be either reverse engineering or actual government like programming or stuff versus these weird light anomalies or weird visitations or weird like cryptoids or whatever. I don't know. I like them all, but I'm just like, I'm starting to get to a point where I'm kind of going like, oh, whatever, tic-tac-toe, boring, super boring.
Yeah, tier 3B, whatever. We've seen it. Yeah. No, right. I get it, and it could be a manipulative thing by the government too, to go, hey, look, there's aliens, when it's really, that's what they're trying to spin you off of, to not pay attention to the things that are already here, like the balls, the energy, the orbs, the ultra terrestrials, the things that are real. So spin you off into a thing thinking it's all little green men, when it's really, consciousness. I think that's what this whole thing kind of gets into. When I got into this game when I was a kid, obviously that didn't come to a part of it. But as I got older and experienced and talked to a lot of people and, just living life and things too, it's like, man, there's really something to do here with collective consciousness or individual consciousness, like as a whole, where, CE5 and all that thing comes into play, where like you even go into that and you go into remote viewing, where, if that's possible, anything's possible, so to me, I'm like, I think that's a major part of it, and that we as humans really don't understand the powers we possess and how to even do it or control it and what's going on, there's just some crazy things that you can do to like just simple experiments for yourself to figure out that's real. So
I recently did a remote viewing class, and
I've done one as well. And I was like, holy shit.
Me too. I was like, it works so well that I was like, shit. If that works that well, then what's really going on here? Is this a simulation? What is this?
No, I'm totally with you, because like when I heard they were training Army grunts, like guys that just got out of boot camp, like, hey, we can give you this book, we're going to sit you in this class for 2 days or whatever, and we're going to train you how to do this. And I was like, man, I know a lot of Army grunts, and if these assholes can do this, then I can do it for sure, right? And then that's literally what it was. I think it took the Ed Dames course, and I was like, oh, they made it so official. Like, here's a form you fill out, and here's this thing, and it's like, it's so like you do this whole thing. It's like an Army thing. Like you do this, and it works.
There's your AOL or whatever.
Yeah, right down here and all this stuff. And so I was like, okay, maybe I'm just, maybe because I'm into this shit, I'm into it. So my stepdaughter is 10, and I'm like, right when COVID, happened, we were in lockdown and she didn't have school. I'm like, look, I went through this. This is kind of what it is. I didn't give her too much background. I'm like, just watch the video, and just follow. Here's the forms. I'm going to stay out of your face. Just do it, And I came back and I was like, holy shit, this kid was like right on. Like every single one of the, pictures that popped up, I was like, she's way turned on. She's 10. She has no preconceived, just going to do it, And she did it so well. She got bored and was like, quit. She didn't even finish it. Cause like, I can do this. Like, I don't care.
That's not cool.
Yeah. It's not cool. I'm gonna go back to TikTok now. Fuck this, but it's just amazing, where kids and like the seeing while blindfolded thing for kids. Have you seen any of that stuff?
Yeah, I have a friend who does that in Mexico City. She's an extraocular vision
wow, coach. That's rad, huh?
Yeah, that and when you see some videos of that stuff, like they can read like full on books with.
You hand a kid a book that's never seen before, and they're like, they have the sensors in there, so they know they're not seeing, and they're just reading it, or like catching stuff you're throwing at them, or colors, and riding a bike. And I'm like, holy shit, I can barely ride a bike. I can see.
That just makes me, there's so much untapped mental abilities that we have. I really do. Like one of my things is I used to, as a kid, think I could control the rain, and I could control the rain as a kid. And then puberty, it was like, it stopped or whatever. And as I got older, I've just recently started to try to like get that back. And I actually understand how to explain how to visualize it for people.
Wow.
And I am kind of starting to go, okay, I used to, my mom would tell me, don't tell people that, Nikki, don't tell people you can control the rain. They're going to think you're crazy. And I'm like, no, but I can. And she'd be like, yeah, okay, but don't vocalize that.
Right. Yeah, don't say that.
Yeah, but I don't know. So I'm thinking like there's people who are like animal communicators. I don't know if you've watched any documentaries about that. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. But back to the consciousness thing, which is kind of super interesting.
I'm going to stop you just for 1 second, because I've seen somebody control the rain, and this is the first I've actually heard somebody who knew, and I didn't believe it at first, but I had radar and I could see a group of cloud. I mean, it was a big ass thunderstorm, right? It was coming in. We were having a meeting and it was outside, and this guy controlled the rain. Didn't tell us he controlled the rain until after it was done. And then I was like, holy shit. So when you go back and look at the radar, there was this tiny hole where everything was raining around us, right? We're sitting there. We could watch it just raining all around us. And I'm like,
I can make it rain, or I can make it not rain. I can
rain is what I saw.
Or I can make it quit. I can make it go heavy where I am or unheavy. And then when I was a kid, I haven't been able to redo this, but when I was a kid, I could trace out where I wanted lightning to go.
Whoa.
But I can't do that anymore. I haven't got that back. I'll just say it like that.
That's right. You have to teach me how to do that, Nikki.
Okay. So like, I'll just give you a brief rundown about how I did it. Okay. You know how when there's like a cat or dog in the room, even though they can't speak English, you understand there's a presence there. Yeah. And there's like, there's some, you can just like look at it and you can feel that there's that presence. Mm-hmm. The sky in and of itself is alive and it has a presence to it. So you have to connect with that as if you were talking to any other entity, any other being, any other person. And just in your head, like, I used to use English, but you have to use pictures and feelings. So like, for instance, if I really wanted it to rain, I would just sit down, breathe for a second. And then like, I only works when I close my eyes, but I would close my eyes and I would basically act like I'm talking to the sky around me as if it was a person. And sometimes I'd play games. I'll be like, I bet you can't rain. I bet you can't rain tomorrow. Or, or I bet you can't stop the rain. And I can get a feel for whether it's wanting to play with me or not. So I get a feel for its mood in a way.
Wow. Yeah.
And so then you can kind of
change your path.
Yeah, you can kind of say like if you like, for instance, if it's not in a playful mood, maybe you just need to express like, hey, we really. And this is what if I were the ground, this is what I would feel like if you were raining on me. If I were a leaf, this is what I would feel like if you were raining on me. And if I were an animal out in the rain, this is like the relief I would get from having that on me. And I even will envision it like getting on my skin and seeping in my skin and like expressing to it how grateful I would be if it was touching me. This is all done like by giving it a visual movie instead of saying, I don't know if it works. I mean, it works for me. It's like, I don't know. No one taught me how to do this or anything. It's just something I did as a kid, but it's worth trying for people. You just act like the sky and the clouds themselves are beings and talk to it in pictures in your head about like what you want to happen, and it'll happen.
Yeah. And that is crazy. And they don't mean crazy, but it's spot on for a thing where, I mean, I DJ'd for a long time in nightclubs and stuff like that. And so when it was like 2001 and I moved back home to hang out, it was just family was going through some stuff, and so I came out and help out on the farm, right? Came back home. So I started DJing and hanging out, but there's literally nobody where I grew up, right? Like the middle of cornfield, like Northwest Ohio, right? So we're hanging out, campfire one night, met a couple of buddies, and we're just sitting out and we hear this dirt bike in the distance. And I'm like, maybe we were a little drunk or high or both. So I'm like, shit, it's the cops. And my buddy looks at me, yeah, asshole, the cops are on dirt bikes. And then we just started busting out laughing, right? And I was making a mix CD at the time and I couldn't think of a name of it. So I was like, that's it. I'm going to name the CD Cops on Dirt Bikes because that's fucking hilarious because you don't think of that, right? Yeah. Like, no shit. It was back in the day, right? So I like printed labels with a cop, just called it Cops on Dirt Bikes, not a picture, just whatever. Gave it out to my friends, whatever. 2 weeks later, after I did that, I'm driving to work. Guy pulls out in front of me real quick on a dirt bike. Full uniform police officer. Like just full on cop. And I'm like,
manifested that one.
Yeah. I'm like, fuck. That just happened, right? At that point, I'm like, anything can happen now. If you just think about it hard enough and you care about it and you put some emotion behind it, shit, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah. I think I've told that story a couple of times, but not on camera. But so that's funny. But that literally happened, man. And I'm like, well, you can do anything then. Same thing. Make it happen. But people are just like pushed down, or not pushed down, but they're taught that to believe in some type of higher power or some type of authority figure that's going to save them or tell them what to do. But I think we really just got to get to the point where we as humans need to like elevate ourselves. We're like, I can do all this.
Yeah, like the personal sovereignty element. Yeah, I definitely feel like that's kind of interesting to talk about, like who is doing that to us or not. Like I don't know how you feel about psychedelics or what you've done.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I think that's a gateway.
Yeah, I've had a 2 ego deaths now. And I would say that they were the most valuable experiences of my life. Just
Me too.
because, yeah, okay. So you've had some,
yeah. And that gets you, it grounds you back to where the oneness, I think, is what it did for me. It was like,
exactly.
yeah, it's like, hey, everything's connected. This blade of grass, this guy over here that's being an idiot still, and and everybody you love, and the stars above you, everything is all the same. And it's like one vibrational
that monad concept that you talked about with, I had never read it like that. I just experienced that same thing where I basically was back with the energy source of whatever. And I didn't like to say God because I felt like God is a personification, and I felt like heaven is a place. And I felt, like a lot of these words kind of like put it into a noun. Whereas it was different than that from my experience. It felt like it was just like whatever the energy that ignites us all. It was that electricity in a way. And I was back in that, and I didn't know I was a human. I didn't know I was Nikki. I didn't know I was a girl. I didn't know anything, but I experienced the oneness again. And then that made me have so much more compassion when I came back. Cause I was like, oh shit, man. Like, you can hate the tyrants all you want, but they're an aspect of something that is got the same electricity in it that you do.
Right. And so is the ant that you just stepped on an accident. And,
and the rocks.
And the spider that you fucking hate. Yeah. No, I mean, it's all there. And it really doesn't, it's like near death experiences. And then I think that, psychedelic experiences kind of really good correlators to the same kind of thing in my mind. Because the experiencers of each one of those things have the same message in a way. If you think about it like that, like somebody had a near death experience, kind of go back to the oneness, everything comes into picture. Same thing from, ego death or psychedelic experiences, in a lot of, and I'm trying to say this without getting into trouble. So a lot of esoteric,
teachings?
Yes, teachings or esoteric, ceremonies, degrees, things like that. There's a aspect, if you go back to the mystery schools, the Egyptian mystery schools, or if you research any of those or any of the, secret studies where, Pythagoras, and if you go back even farther in any of those, you want to say cults, but they're, whatever they were, ancient colleges, secret mystery schools, right? I think that's where I was going, mystery schools. They, it was long, hard, put where you physically, mentally, emotionally went through this whole entire gamut to get to a spot where it broke you down. And, psychedelics were even used in a lot of those as well, to broke you down to like your bare minimum of your existence as a human, to realize, hey, there's a lot more than this than you're experiencing in your day-to-day life, or what you perceive to be your day-to-day life, or how you perceive everything to work, and then build you back up. And then, here's a whole bunch of knowledge that you need to know too, at the same time. So it's like, here's a void and we're going to fill it, but you're doing it anyway because you're a part of it. I'm paraphrasing a lot because I can't say a lot about it, but I'm just trying to give you a 1,000-foot view of kind of what that is. But it teaches you to experience life in a different way than you already have your entire life,
Yeah, I'm reading the Emerald Tablets right now, and I'm really interested in I've started just looking into more like the Hermetica and I just feel like we have such an arrogant view that we're the smartest we've ever been right now. That's not, especially when you get into, there was definitely an advanced culture on this planet that was wiped out either from
every 12,000 years. Every 12,000 years, actually, that happens.
Yeah. Well, and like the Younger Dryas was the last big one that took it out. And that's one of my big obsessions. Like the first time I went to Sacsayhuaman in Peru, I touched my hands on some of the stones and I was like, what the hell? Like, we did not build this. Like, I'm sorry, but Inca people did not build like something like, what is like, why didn't I learn about this in school? What is this place again? Like, where are we? What's going on? And then that just like kind of flipped my world, where I was just like, okay, I knew just looking at the stones in person, no one had to say anything to me because I had never researched it before. I went there on a whim, like I was on a yoga trip. And then I was going like, okay, guys, this is not okay. This is not okay. Like, this is something that I should have known about my whole life. Like, let's talk about this butter melting stones that are bigger than cars put together. And then anyway, so then that like put me down the whole rabbit hole of that, which is actually, that's one of my favorite subjects. I love that stuff. But
no, that's I got into this too, and like I don't know if you are suspiciousobservers.com, if you're yeah. So I mean, that's a huge Dr. Ben Davidson's a genius. He's put together some stuff that I don't think anybody has on the planet. I mean, I've been following him for about 15 years now, just on and off. And, for the past, I don't know, 5, I've been really involved. And when the CIA started releasing documents they've been hiding, and, Ben put it all together with the research they've done from the Apollo missions where they found rocks that, correlate to all the stuff that's been happening on the planet. And then they, it's just like, hey, there's going to be a micronova soon. And the Earth's going to go like this for a little bit, and then it's going to go back, and about 25% of the planet's going to live. And that's what happens about every 12,000 years.
Well, that's actually what those blue balls told me
really
in 2018, they told me that we were going to have a pole reversal and that they could hold it back for up to, so they were saying that they could hold it back for up to 25 years, but that they needed certain people to raise their vibration enough so that they could see them. It wasn't personal. It was that they can't, if you're in a low enough vibration or whatever that means.
You can't pick it up, right? Yeah.
They can't see you to help you.
Wow.
So it was about that basically. And I was like, all right, sounds a little, and then afterwards I was like, oh, this sounds a little Corey Good stuff. But that was actually something that happened to me. Talk to me, but then I started looking into pole reversals and all that. Like, that wasn't on my radar before that.
Right. That's on nobody's radar, by the way. Nobody gives a shit about that. I tell people, they're like, oh,
that's huge. I mean, I've also recently talked to this like Dihold Foundation. He's also big into the Adam and Eve thing document. From
yeah. Where they released, that was the hidden one. And the CIA actually went out. I can't remember the guy's name. I think it was Hapgood, who was a CIA agent. And he went out and basically every academic, modern science, pinnacle of geology and everything else, or whatever, astrology, whatever, is built on Hapgood's theory. And Einstein wrote the preview to Hapgood's book. So everybody thinks that Hapgood, is basically the same thing, but Hapgood was basically just trying to steer everybody away from the truth. And that was going on for the past 50 years or 60 years, whatever. And it's like, man, those fuckers. But maybe they are building bunkers underground to protect us all. Not us. I mean, we're not going to be in there.
No, but the military is totally building stuff underground. Yeah. Then sometimes I'm like, do I actually need to become like a crazy prepper and like build an underground thing? But I don't know. You wouldn't last. And like the way it looks like from the geological record, like I used to be a geology major way back when. Yeah. And the Milankovitch cycles are very much like they go. Okay, so basically they look in the Pacific Ocean where the iron filings of the lava like melts instantly when it hits the water. Okay.
Yeah.
So whenever it freezes, the poles of the iron filings are facing towards the magnetic north. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when they look through the geologic record, it's like a castle top where it's like they're facing south. They're facing north. They're facing south. They're facing north. It's not like a sine wave, like where it gradually happens. Like whatever happens,
happening,
like boom,
not happening.
Boom, boom, boom. So yeah, and I definitely think when you look around, like if you look at Terra Preta, you look at all like the engineered soil that's found all over the world. That's like we can't recreate today, and it's way more nutritious, and you don't have to put fertilizer and all that stuff. There was totally advanced civilizations that were just boom wiped out in a second, and I don't know. So
we're not gonna make it. But Ben says if we just got to float, And I'm like, I don't, to float to where? To be able to go back to like using a bow and arrow and making like shit. I don't know if I want to hang out.
Yeah. I know, right? That is another thing. Like when people talk about zombie apocalypses, I'm like, I don't want to live with a bunch of zombie. I don't know. I'm not gonna like get my sword out and go. I don't know.
But that's interesting that the blue things told you that this was coming. They could hold it off. One of my things was like along that line too. Was thinking like, they're here to help. And this is just my shitty theory that I've come up with. One of many, by the way, is that maybe this disclosure thing is partially being pushed by the government faster now is because their holding off has stopped, or they know it's coming and it's going to happen in a certain amount of time. And there's some of these things, whether they're here or from out there or whatever, they're going to show up to help us. And they always do. They always show up to help us, humanity, right? Say, hey, we're going to help.
So they told me that here, finish your thought.
No. Go ahead. I want to hear it.
Well, so they told me I'm of the builder race. That's what they told me. I don't know that I am. I'm just telling you what they told me. So They are of the builder race. They used those specific words. Mm-hmm. And they were like, they called me a pacifier at the time. And they were saying that when I'm activated, there's millions of me's. There's millions of people like me that will like our energy center becomes like a beacon, and we like calm the population around us. And then they are allowed to kind of see us, and they'll be able to take us off planet for 4 years. They were very specific about that because the atmosphere won't be able to be breathable within those 4 years. Okay. And then when the waters recede and when it's okay, they drop us back off. And I was just like, okay, some people are not going to be cool with hanging out on shit. Like they can almost put us in a stasis state.
We're just sleeping on a ship.
You're sleeping on a ship for 4 years. And I don't know. They could be crazy. I'm just telling you what they told me. I don't know. Or what they showed me more or less. I would say. This is like totally, but I remember thinking like, okay, that's interesting. But then I don't like the concept of, okay, you just like wait around, chill, wait for something to save you. I don't like that concept.
Yeah. Right. No, yeah, I get that too. That's really interesting to me. I've been thinking along these lines that they're trying to tell everybody that this shit's going to happen, because if things start showing up in the sky, and if they're, we'll just go with what they told you, and they're here to pick you up, and all of a sudden you and I are hanging out, and there you go, right? And then 14 other people, and I'm like, well, what am I still sitting here? What the hell's going on? Maybe they're trying to either raise the vibration, which I don't think they are because of everything that's going on the planet. It seems like it's the opposite to me.
I was gonna say it seems like it's being lowered, but
the wage drop. But like either they're trying to do that, or they're trying to prepare us for, hey, this is going to happen. And it's don't worry about it. It's going to happen. We kind of know what's going on. We've had it figured out.
What kind of bothers me about this, or actually this is where I'm starting to think about now, is that like I really actually do think there is inner earth. Like I at first I thought it was just like a cool concept. I was like, whatever. I actually went and visited a portal in Colombia back in March of 2020, and I don't know, man. I saw a unicorn, so I'm saying something was going on there. Like I don't know what exactly.
I saw one of your videos where you like, I don't know if this is there or not. It was really arid looking. It was a desert kind of looking, where you said something was there for a second and then it wasn't. It looked like a city.
Oh, that was about Chaco Canyon.
Okay.
Which also I think that is those people. That's another whole topic that we could discuss as well. But anyway, the one I went to in Colombia was this shaman guy had been there a couple times because he took this monk from Tibet there who begged him to go there. They went to this place. It's called Manoa. No one knows of it. It's like in the middle of the Amazon jungle. It's super secluded. We had to go on donkeys or like mules on like through rivers like that went up to our waist. I mean, it was like not easy to get there. There was no hotel. Like we were sleeping outside in tents. There was no toilet. Like we were, there was holes in the ground. It was crazy. It was like super, super remote. Anyway, so the story is that the shaman guy, when he was younger in his 30s, he took this like this monk guy there because the guy was being invited to come. Goes there, the guy disappears and they can't find him. The shaman feels like super responsible because he was part of his group, so he goes back the next day, follows the guy's footprints, walks behind this tree. There's there's the doorway, and it's got these mechanical, like metal looking guard things. And then this woman who's like a 12 or a 10 foot, I don't know, 10, 12-foot giant with blue skin walks out, introduces herself as Consuela. It's actually a cool book. It's only in Spanish, but anyway, so she invites him in. He stays for 4 hours, but it was really like 21 days he was gone. Like his son and all the other people back at the camp thought he was gone missing too. They were freaking out. It was, it's a big deal. But anyway, he's in there and she's explaining to him that they were part of the Atlantis civilization, and that during the last deluge, this is one of the breakaway cities she said there's some all over the world, not that many, but there's some all over the world that still survived. And then but she said to him, or his story is that it was a fight, a nuclear war between Lemurians and Atlanteans, and that's what destroyed the Earth. But there are breakaway civilizations that live under the ground and have like these portals that you can go in and out of, and they still exist. But she told him that we're the 5th age of man, and that there's 2 more to come, and that our time's almost done, and that the sixth race is being prepared, and they'll be half the size of us. They'll be like 3 feet tall. I don't know. It's a crazy.
So were we bigger than before then? Were we?
Oh yeah, she said Lemurians, and so she said the first 2 races were etheric. They were like they were dust. The dragons, and like kind of like ghosts, mystic stuff. But she says that's where the legend of all of your fairies and your dragons and all that stuff comes from. And they were like Lord of the Rings, but more magical and mystical. Then she said the 3rd race was the Lemurians, and then the 4th race was the Atlanteans, and then Homo sapiens sapiens is the 5th race. And but I'm like, well, who's building these races? Like, well, that's a whole other question. But she didn't answer for him.
Amun-Ra, right?
Amun-Ra,
yeah, right. Amun-Ra. I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, like the Atlantean theory holds true. I think. I mean, if you think about it in the terms of the micronova pulse shift, switch quick. I mean, if you do that, pieces of land that aren't submerged will be pushed up to the surface, and vice versa, right? So there's all these different things. So if you're just hanging out on a piece of rock that you've hanged out, and if it is Atlantis, I mean, it could be New York. You're underwater real quick, right? Or vice versa. Then there's a body of mass of land that's in the middle of this ocean that's never been there before, and I mean, to me it makes sense. And then the people survive if they float. Yeah, they're going to float, right? So I've read a lot of things that if I'm getting this right, if it's in the Atlantic, if it was in the Atlantic, then the coast of northern Africa and all the way up, Spain and Ireland and all those things have people that are descendants from Atlantis. And one of the things that they say that those people have is the negative blood type, which they still can't explain. So if you look at the coast, I mean, if you literally look at the coast of everything outside of the Atlantic, just the very coast from, Ireland, Scotland, and all the way down to the tip of North Africa and all the way back up, there's blonde haired, blue eyed people, basically. Maybe there's a mixture of that, but the majority of them have a negative blood type. And that's unfathomable when you think about it in terms of that. Like, so if a bunch of people were on an island that sunk and they were all, rhesus negative, and they floated to the nearest piece of land and they stayed there, and then they had, families and civilizations, that would make sense, right?
Yeah. And, that was supposedly 12,000 years ago. So, or younger, 11,900 years ago. I mean, like that's a long time for like verbal memory, not a lot of written records, like a lot. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm convinced that there was a lost civilization for sure.
Yeah. Or multiples. Yeah. Definitely.
Multiple ones. Yeah, for sure. So maybe for me, I'm starting to think, especially when you think of all the UFOs that come in and out of the water of the ocean. Yeah. I'm starting to think like maybe they didn't all completely die. Maybe they are breakaway underneath the ground. Maybe they have bases underneath the ocean. Maybe they I don't. That's the other concept is like, if you were going to build a home, you would live inside the home, not on top of the home. And if you think of Earth as the home, like it would be with asteroid, solar flares, like whatever. I mean, like the Carrington event happened in the 1800s. Like if that happened today, our satellites would be fucked.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just one of those things where you think we act like this is this super stable planet that's always the same temperature, has the same seasons, like has the same land masses. Like, no, that's not the case. We should be living inside of our home instead of on top of our home for, safety reasons.
Yeah. What's the name of the big thing that's in Texas? Oh, I can't remember the name of the wall. That's it's like a big deal, but everybody tried to say it wasn't man-made.
Rock wall.
Yeah, which is like, explain that. It's like a giant wall that was like basically handmade by laying brick, stone and mortar in between. And it's, I don't know how old it is, but it's ridiculously old.
Yeah. I just found out about that, and that's like in my Metroplex, so I could totally go see it. And I tried to contact everybody who was associated with it. It's like crickets, and then it's also a thing where the city doesn't want them to build to dig it up because there's a city on top of it now. And I'm like, that could change the American history. Like that's beyond Native Americans. Like that's like something crazy. And
real way crazy, right? Yeah. There's so much history and stuff built around this we don't even know. I think we're waking up. I think that's part of this whole thing. I think we're starting to wake up. I think people are starting to figure it out. I think people are like me and you. We're not afraid to talk about it. I mean, I think we're the pioneers. I mean, well, there's pioneers before us in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and up now. But we're kind of laying the foundation for the next generation to be not so afraid of. But I really don't think they are. I think people don't really give a shit. Like your friend who was just texting when things are going on, or people don't want to know, or people know and they just like, there's that whole gamut of everybody. Where like, the people like, so this portal thing, tell me about this portal thing. You went to this thing on the donkey. I'm sorry, we didn't get there, but you went to this donkey, you got there. So did you went to the portal? What? And you saw a fucking unicorn? What happened?
Yeah. Like the day before we were supposed to do our trek in to see the portal, like it was, there was no psychedelics involved. This was just so like I ate quinoa and some river water. Okay, that's it. Maybe it was river water. Me and these other two dudes were walking back to, just a little bit far away from the farmhouse that we were eating at, and it's it's like it's dark, but it's maybe there's moonlight or something. It's enough to where I can see stuff. Anyway, I'm like in the back of the line, and I feel like a push on my thing, and it's like, and I look over. And there's a horse with a horn. And it wasn't like, like unicorn pictures are always like these spirally horns. It was just like a solid, like a kind of like how cow horns are just like one piece.
Yeah.
It was like a solid straight horn coming out of like where its third eye would be. And it was a milk white horse. And I'm, the other two boys, they stopped, like the three of us are stopping, like looking at it. And I'm going like, I don't really know what to say. I'm just looking at a unicorn, right? And so one of them goes, that horse has a horn. And I was like, yeah. And the other one goes, okay, I'm just going to say, you guys, it's a unicorn. I think we're looking at a unicorn. And I was like, it is a horse with a horn. So.
And it was friendly. I mean, it bumped you like, hey, how's it going?
And then the other guy was like, why did it touch you? And I was like, I don't know. And so we watched it for like 10 minutes, like just eating grass and slowly walking off until it was just like, okay, well, I guess let's go back to our camp.
Wow.
And then that same evening, I saw these weird little blue lights in the distance, and I thought it was somebody coming up with a headlamp, but nobody ever came up. And I thought, that's weird. And in the morning, one of the guys said that a fairy, he said it was about a foot tall, like a blue fairy that was lit up, came into his tent. He said it had rat eyes, like its eyes looked like a rat.
Wow.
And he's like, it was like a female figure, and it was like a idealized female like figure with wings, flew into there, looked at him, but it had like a rat face kind of thing. And then it flew out, and he was older. He was a photographer. He actually just did a documentary about our whole trip. I need to check it out. I haven't looked at it yet. Anyway, he was like, guys, I have to tell you something. This thing came into my tent. Like he was not into this was like a guy who just wanted to come to try ayahuasca for the first time or something. He wasn't into he didn't know anything about like this portal thing. Like I knew about the portal, which is why I went.
Right.
Anyway, long story short, the guy who was one of the guys who was organizing the trip he was super low vibe. I don't know how else to say it. Like he was psychologically kind of messed up. And I knew they weren't going to let us in because of him. I was like, we're not going to get in because this dude's like, you know, I don't know how to explain it. Like he named himself Dragon Love, and I don't even know what his real name was. And he walked around without a shirt on all the time. And like, he was like psychologically not all there. Like he was talking to things that weren't there all the time, or maybe they were for him. I don't really know, but he was super, like, I felt like the hair on my arms would stand up when I would be around him. I was like, ugh, I don't know. And, anyway, so we were on our way up to the portal, and one of the guys that I saw the unicorn with, fainted. And he like had heat stroke, and so we had to go back, and so I never got to go to the actual portal.
Wow. So you think if you would have got there, you would have been in? Is there like?
I already had the feeling that I wasn't going to go because of him, but I actually knew it won't be my last time there. Like, and I think I've had some talking with these crazy things in my dreams. Like I know I'll go back one day.
Wow, that's rad. That's cool. I think they're everywhere. I really do. I
mean, people talk about what is that one? Mount Shasta.
Yeah, it's a big one. Those guys do CE5 up there all the time, right? There's a guy, I can't remember what that is, but they have like a constant thing where they're always doing CE5 up by Mount Shasta, and there's something coming in and out. I mean, with like mountains and volcanoes and like all those natural earth things. But
I mean, like you would have told me this 3 years ago, I would have been like, dude, you are on some crazy crack. Like, I don't know what you're into, but like, yeah, go sell that someplace else.
Yeah.
You know, now I'm just kind of going like, well, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, anything's possible, but the same thing is like we were talking earlier. I mean, if you really want to believe it, if you want to see a cop on a dirt bike, you're going to see one, you know, if you want to have a portal pop up, it's going to pop up. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. I mean, you could probably do that in your backyard. You can make the portal happen in your backyard if you believe in it and you have, you know, enough whatever behind it. I really do. I think you can do that. And I think if there's more people that believe the same thing or feel the same way, it just amplifies it. It's just going, you know, it's raising the vibration up to be where it's at. So I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
So how did you, no, I think you're spot on. I do. So how did you get into the whole, first of all, what's a Rosicrucian?
A Rosicrucian? Oh, wow. Yeah. It's been different throughout history, I guess.
Wasn't he like a Russian prophet that was friends with the Tsar?
I think you're thinking of Rasputin.
Oh, okay. I think that's what I was.
Yeah, Rasputin. Yeah, he was a little fucking crazy. Oh, now Rosicrucianism is just Jeffrey Mishlove just had a lady on who did a really good historical overview of it. But I am a member of the SRICF, which is the Masonic order of Rosicrucianism, and so you have to be a Freemason.
Okay, so they're linked. You have, yeah.
Yeah, there's other Rosicrucian bodies that are just by themselves, that are just, you know, anybody can join. You can be anybody and just, you know, show up and join. And I am a member of the SRICF, which is the Masonic version of Rosicrucianism, where it's Christian based, and I think it started late 1800s, possibly before then. But it's basically the esoteric side of Masonry and basically the Hermetic principles, of the ancient mysteries and things like that, right? Mm. And it's basically it's a college, right? We call it a college. There's colleges in each state. There's colleges in each continent. I think there's. I could be wrong on this. I think there's only about 2,400 of us on the planet, something like that, give or take. I didn't know it was real until I was asked to join, believe it or not. And I was like, it's real? And yeah, so it is real. So it's been an amazing experience. Actually, this past Saturday, I became a 7th degree Rosicrucian, which is
the 30, there's 33 degrees of each of these things?
No, the 33rd degree is that's Scottish Rite Masonry, which is so there's 3 degrees in Masonry. So you get 3 degrees, you get Master Mason, and what everybody says is that there is no degree higher than a Master Mason. So throughout that time, the Master Mason was the highest degree. That's the 3rd degree. But throughout the years, there's different branches. There's the York Rite of Masonry, and there's the Scottish Rite of Masonry. The York Rite is Christian, which goes through a bunch of degrees and goes up, and that to the pinnacle of that is the Knights Templar. So if you're the Knights Templar, on the Holy Grail, things like that. The Scottish Rite was a little bit after that, and it's that goes all the way up to 33 degrees, and that's a different branch of Masonry that goes up to the higher. I'm also a Shriner. I think, the Shriners with the funny hats, the guys drive little cars, things like that, right? Have all the hospitals that, there's 13 hospitals in the U.S. and I think there's...
Are those the Scottish Rite hospitals, or are they...
Well, actually, to be, and I think they just changed this law a couple of years ago, but law or edict or whatever, but I think you had to be a Scottish Rite Mason to become a Shriner. I don't think that's the case now. I could be wrong. I might be wrong on that, but so you have to be a Scottish Rite Mason and become a Shriner. The deal with the Shriners is the guys were Scottish Rite Masons, and they were having fun. And in Masonry, obviously you can't tell secrets, right? And so you can't drink and lodge, right? So you don't want to get drunk and just start telling secrets. You want to go to the bar and just get hammered and start, hey, everybody, guess what's going on? Right. But there was a bunch of guys that were Freemasons that were friends and were like, hey, we like to have fun. Let's hang out. So they were just hanging out, and they kind of like just hanging out outside a lodge and having fun. And there was a bunch of guys doing it after a while, and they're like, well, let's do something to help somebody. So what they did is they're like, well, what are we going to do? Let's help kids. So they started donating money. They started going, well, what are we going to do? Let's build hospitals. So they started building hospitals. A lot of guys that would die that didn't have families, a lot of people or kids or whatever, just donate their estates, donate everything they had to the shrine. And the shrine was basically, like I said, there's just guys that like to drink, have fun, do fun things, but they're Masons, so they had all the same values, but they wanted to help. So they started building hospitals all over the U.S. And like I said, there's 2 in Canada and I think 2 in Mexico now. But anytime a kid is born, from the time the baby's born until he's 18, you walk into any Shriners hospital and everything's paid for. You have to pay for anything at all. And they're the best burn units, best bone doctors, and experimental research on the planet. So that's going on. And it just grew out of a bunch of guys who were having fun and wanted to help kids. So they've done some amazing science throughout the years, and it's great because of all the donations that are going on, and there's an endowment that happens. So it pays for, everything all these years. And that's just really, really cool. So when I got into it, I was like, this is amazing. This is awesome. We're helping these kids out, kids that, would never have a chance before to be able to walk, can walk now. And so it's awesome to be able to just contribute a little tiny bit of my life to that, to help kids out like that, So there's a huge, huge thing with Freemasonry and betterment of man, and betterment of the planet, society as a whole, everything. So when you get to these higher degrees, like I said, I didn't even think it was the 33rd degree is something that they bestow upon you. You can't even talk about it. You can't say, I want to be a 33rd, because then you'll never be one. It's one of those things where like, hey, you've dedicated your life, you've done all these cool things for Masonry, we're going to bestow this on you. And that's like a great honor. And this Rosicrucian thing, like I said, I didn't believe it was real until they asked me, and I was like, this is awesome. So we do a lot of research as a college, we write papers, we do lectures, we do, we study, we have all these things, esoteric tech, any of these things, but has to do with hermeticism, astrology, astronomy, like, the several liberal arts and sciences, that you can think of.
So it is like you're becoming it's like an alchemist, like mystery school.
Yeah.
See, my gender prevents me, right? Like girls aren't allowed in it, right?
Yeah, it's such a tough, yeah. Well, it's a touchy subject, right? It is. But there are, the Grand Lodge of England has a couple degrees where there are some Masonic lodges that are female. In America, there's a thing called the Eastern Star, which is the female version of the Masonic order, where it follows the same kind of line, right? There's things called Job's Daughters, which is the daughters of Freemasons, and De Molay, which is the sons of Freemasons, and there's things like that. But yeah, you're right. and it is kind of shitty.
Yeah, well,
because one of the requirements are you have to believe in a higher power, right? That's one thing, right? So you can't be an atheist. You have to believe something's out there. You have to be a man, freeborn, of good rapport, and well recommended. It's kind of one of those things. So, yeah, that. And I'm sorry, I don't know why.
Disqualifies me.
I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't know why, but I do. I mean, through all of my research and everything, I don't know. I hate to say this, and I'm not talking shit about our fraternity, and I'm not talking shit about religion. But maybe I am talking shit about religion, but I think that there was a time that there was a concerned effort by man, and I'm saying men as a gender, that said women really can control us a lot. Like they have way more control out of us than we can fucking even handle. So what are we going to do to figure this out? Well, let's let them not be part of a religion, and let's let them not know the mysteries, right? Wait a minute, they told us all the mysteries. Wait a minute, they are a religion. Oh yeah, well, we can't handle it, you know? And that's my personal belief, is that we were just like, fuck, we can't handle this shit. These chicks they can do anything they want. We can't deal with it. And that's, like I said, that's just my personal belief from everything I've learned. It's just like women have a stronger power than men do. And we're like, we can't handle it. We got to control you.
I've heard this concept of, almost like within the pole shifting kind of thing. There's like feminine ages and there's masculine ages. There's feminine ages and they're masculine. Like, I mean, a lot of people say Lumerian was and even like a lot of times they say that era was a feminine age. Like, was, so I don't know, like, who knows? But I mean, I'm sure there's other mystery schools that, I don't know. Like I have a hard time sometimes thinking about the concept of, I go back and forth. Part of me is like, there's a part of me that doesn't believe that everybody should know everything because they're not responsible with some stuff.
I agree.
And, like they're just like, if we all knew how to make bombs, imagine like, that kind of thing. But at the same time, another part of me doesn't like the concept of having information closed off to other people because of other, so like I go back and forth like on how to basically compartmentalize that within myself.
Yeah, and you can't. It's it's like you would think that the less or the greater would prevail, but how do you know? And that's where you go back to the UFO thing. I mean, like if there are different sects of warring factions between interdimensionals, extraterrestrials, ultra-terrestrials, whatever, and they hate each other and they're just using humans as pawns to battle their stuff out. I mean, how do we know? How do we know that we're not just big pawns in their big game that they're playing, this billion-year game, that we're just ants to them and then we're just playing it out for them? I'd like to think that at some point we've figured it out and we're going, yeah, you know what? We're not going to deal with your shit anymore. Invite us to the party or fuck off. I mean,
I don't know, but I mean, like, we don't have to put this part in, and I don't know how you feel about this, but like, even if you watch like COVID stuff, I mean, we are such sheep. We are controlled to a level that I mean, I'm in Texas. There's no more
mask mandate or
mandates and or like occupancy things. Mm-hmm. I just got back from West Texas to do like a geology dig. I was digging for geodes. Mm-hmm. There was 20 of us. We're in the field in a national park, like hundreds of feet away from us, like outside looking for rocks, and 6 out of the 20 are looking for rocks outdoors in the fucking heat of the day, like 90 degrees with their mask on. It's almost like the whole slavery thing about how, like they talk about how at one point they would put collars on slaves and then whenever they would take them off, like they would feel naked. Mm-hmm. It's like a programming, like we really are to a large extent like cattle. Sheep. We are just such followers without any, questions asked. It's just amazing to me. It makes me kind of like sad for humans in general, because have you ever read that alien art? What is it? Interview with an Alien.
Is it based on
based on the theory is that, I mean, it's probably, I would say like 95% bullshit, but it's based on the claim is that what do we call it? Some people say it's got a lot of Ron Hubbard stuff in it, so it's kind of like
Scientology. Shit.
They're different. But I mean, a lot of people say there's some similarities, which is one of the things that got. But it apparently is about the crash at Roswell, and it was like the alien that they talked to, and she or he or whatever is like this little android that telepathically talked to this nurse, and it's the notes that the nurse.
Oh, right. I did read that. Yeah, I have read that, and I can't remember what it's called, but yeah.
Anyway, the basic concept that I kind of sometimes stuck with me, the thing that I didn't think was complete bullshit that kind of stuck with me, was that this is like a prisoner planet for souls or something. Like we're stuck here. And I don't know if I believe that exactly, but I do kind of wonder if like the fact that we forget everything, like this is just like this is some sort of, I don't, and I feel this within myself, that I don't think it's always normal to forget everything. I don't know that that's I don't feel like that feels like that's existence everywhere for always.
No, and I've gone with this too, and I've thought this, and I've said this. I think the last time I talked to Patricia, believe it or not, our second interview, but like I didn't want to have kids, and my daughter's 3 now, right, and I had this feeling that it was like there's something tying me to the planet, and I think it's DNA. I think that like my whatever ancestor that was here from the beginning of time, I have that person inside of me, and it's true. It's DNA, right? That's existent on the planet. That I feel like if I procreated, then my DNA stays here again. So part of me stays on this planet. But in my mind, before. When I didn't want to have kids, I was like, if I don't procreate, then I get to go back. Fuck this. I don't have to stay here anymore.
That's weird. I have that same sort of internal dialogue with myself. I'm 38 and I'm single and I don't have kids. And like,
I was 40 when I had my, or close to, I was 39. Yeah. 39 when I had Stella. And I was like, fuck, I'm too old. This isn't going to work. But it happened.
Yeah. Part of me thinks like, haven't completely made my mind or the other about it, because like part of me is like kind of like maybe I should have once, just as a human rite of passage, but then another part of myself kind of goes like, then you have to stay, like it's like karma. You're creating karma. Wow,
that's crazy that you said that too. And Patricia told me, we were talking about this. She was like, because she's like, a lot of people think that they stay too because you're invested in that. Like, so you want to see your kids or your grandkids, and you want to make sure that they're okay, and you're invested in this thing that we call life, right? This whatever this is, and we have such a tie to it that we want to stay. Maybe it's not the genetic thing, but maybe it's just like, oh, we care enough, like, oh, we don't want to go. But that was really one of my big deals. I was like, man, fuck, I want to go back. Like, but the other part of this is too, and I've talked about this, is like, I think that's maybe the greatest treasure that we have, is that we forget. I think it's kind of like an amusement park where we're just like, we go back up and we're like, fuck yeah, that was rad. Let's go back. Because whatever we're dealing with at the time, if you think about it in just the generalist of terms, it's like we're hanging out, we go back up there like, wow, look at all that cool shit. Like you can't experience the things that we're doing, like the conversations we're having, like the booze I'm drinking, like, like the things that we're doing, like that doesn't exist wherever that is. So we're like, cool. And the greatest gift is that we forget, so that we experience the whole thing again. Yeah. Like we're just babies, to whatever we do, and then we get back, and then maybe we do have a choice, but maybe the DNA does hide us.
The memories all back at some point. I don't know, but for me, I feel like it's that whole concept of like if you're at the DMV and you're waiting for like 2 hours to get your driver's license, and you're like, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever. Like, come on, let's move. But at the same time, do I have real memory of waiting at the DMV? Not really. Like, that's not something that's prominent in my memory complex. It's like, whatever. But yet I would have had the good, I kind of feel like the more memorable like events or things that you've done, you can kind of have more play-by-plays, like the more important moments versus like the, waiting in traffic or something. So it is weird how we compartmentalize memory, and pain like doesn't last. The memory of pain isn't as prominent as the memory of joy. Like when you really like start looking at your thing. But I also always take comfort in not, I see memory as like this like sliding scale to where it's like, I don't remember what happened, what it was before I was born, but I also don't remember my first 3 years of life. And then I barely remember it. It feels like the older you get, the less you remember before then. So like, I feel like you have this, your desktop can only fit so much files before it has to go into your hard drive. Right.
Yeah.
So you're, as you move along with time, you're more connected to what has most closely happened to you as you go through. And that in a way brings some comfort to me, because I think like, okay, well, maybe that's just how it works, like universally. Like you're in the present and you're in the now, and you're whatever is closest to the now is what is on the desktop. But maybe, once we started this new program, which is this incarnation, everything else is in the hard drive, but we can access that at some point and figure out how to access that.
Yeah, that's totally it. I think there's ways to do it. I think that's what the collective unconscious or collective consciousness is. I think it's always there. I think it's there for us to pop into or, pick up from. And I was having this conversation today with my wife. We were walking, and it was Edison and Tesla and a bunch of other people had this thing where, have you heard about this? Where they held a steel ball, a big steel ball in their hand, and below them, like they would take naps all the time during the day, and below them, they would be working on a problem they couldn't solve. They're like, I can't figure this out, right? Whatever there is, and they'd be thinking about it, and they'd want to find the answer to this. So they would take a nap, but they would hold this heavy steel ball in their hand, and they would have like a steel bowl underneath them. And they would drift off and they'd fall asleep. And it just as they fall asleep, your hand relaxes and opens up, and this ball falls out, and it falls into this bowl, and it goes bam, and it wakes them up, right? But in that amount of time between that happening, they access that Akashic record, the whatever it is, right? And then the answer comes to them. And like the majority of their inventions, the majority of their answers, like all of these things have come to them in these states.
That's interesting, because I remember Tesla, it only slept like 20-minute intervals or did some weird stuff like that. So, okay.
Yeah. So Edison, there's a statue of Edison holding one of these balls in his hand somewhere. I can't remember where, but like it's a thing. And Brian Romley is a guy on Twitter too that he's awesome, and he's got a thing where he talks all about it. And I don't know if it's MIT or Stanford, they've created a glove where it's like a glove that you can put on. It has electrodes on it, and it does the same thing without holding the ball. Like it knows when you get to that state where your hand relaxes, and it like kind of wakes you back up, and it's fucking nuts. But a lot of people are using that because it's proven that works. Whatever it comes to you, and you can connect to it, and there's all these little things that we just don't know about.
I'm a natural lucid dreamer, and I always have been. And I think the main reason, like I've told some of my friends, is like, well, I drink a shit ton of water before I go to bed, and it's a bad habit, but I have to pee at least like 2 or 3 times in the middle of the night. I wake my body up, and I have to go pee. And I think it's like maybe I always like wake myself up during REM, or I don't really know, but it makes it to where, okay, maybe I'm not a lucid dreamer every night, but at least 4 nights out of 7, I lucid dream, and have since I was a baby. I don't remember not being like that. And so, and what the only reason I could figure out later is that I have that like I have a fear of being thirsty in the middle of the night. Like I have a fear of like getting a dry mouth or something. Right. So I'm like, I like drink like a ton of water right before I go to bed every night. And if I don't do it, I don't feel right. Like I feel like, oh, my throat, like I'm
can't sleep then, right?
Can't do it. I have to drink like a ton of water. So anyway, I think that I break up my sleep cycle. So
That's it. What are you holding? You holding two balls right now? Too?
Oh yeah. This one's from Bosnia, like the Bosnia pyramids. Like this is a friend brought this back for me. This is like one of those balls, the spheres they have there. And then this is a lapis one. And I always hold this one because I'm like, that's supposed to be for your throat chakra. So I always have these by my like my computer whenever I'm doing podcasts, because it's, you know, lapis is supposed to be for communication. I don't know, whatever.
But that one's actually like a ball that they found at a site.
Yeah, it's apparently a ball that was found in the pyramidal. Apparently, there's a lot of these that are. It's a perfect stone sphere.
Wow.
I don't know. And like my friend was like, I don't want to give this to you, but I keep on getting told I need to give this to you. And she's like, awesome. It's like, this is cool. I went there and I wanted to go there. I was actually supposed to go to do the Bosnia pyramid thing in 2020. And of course.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's so much shit in your backyard that you would be amazed at too.
Yeah, and that's something I'm starting to get, you know, more into. Like there's, like I said, the rock wall thing is in Texas, and I next month I joined this gem and mineral club thing, and just within the last 6 weeks, there's been another big bed of dinosaur feet and human feet found in Glen Rose that are like on the same, like they're crossing over each other, and like that has been found in Glen Rose before. But just this paleo group that I belong to, they're like, this is like historic. Like you guys got to come down and check it out, photograph it, because it'll hit the news sometime this summer, and it's going to be crazy.
Wow. That's the giant thing always gets me too. There's so many giants that are the bones are just chucked into the ocean or burned or whatever. It's like, man, they're still there.
The giants have been on a huge rabbit hole with that, and I mean,
there's too much proof to say that it's just bullshit.
Yeah, and it's also weird that when they find skeletons, like the Smithsonian takes them, and it's like, deuces.
Yep. See, what are you talking about? We didn't pick that shit up. What giant skeletons?
Yeah.
No.
I don't know what. And that makes me kind of go, well, why is it in? Okay, do you actually think disclosure is going to come?
No.
I don't either.
No, it's not. I mean, and even if it did, like you and I were talking about, 75% of people are like, it's not real. I've had this conversation like every single video I think I've ever done, is that I got a buddy of mine that I love him to death. He's awesome, but he's one of the dudes where, like, if a disc landed in his fucking backyard and the thing got out and was 7 feet tall and came and walked up to him and was like, Mike, we're from wherever, whatever. Hey, Mike, look, cool, nice to meet you. And the thing got up and flew away. He would be like, nah, dude, that didn't happen. You know, like he would just like, it literally, if he saw the whole thing go down, he'd be like, nah, that wasn't real. Like it's just, you know, like there's so many people that are like that. Like, no, that didn't happen. You know, and it's programming or the sheep thing or whatever, you know, we're talking about before, where people just believe whatever they want to believe. And I mean, I think there's so much of that. I think that they're really afraid of giving us all the information is because of the religious aspect of it. There's so many people that would still flip out and decide that their religion didn't matter anymore and shoot themselves and all kinds of stuff. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of maybe more cynical than that, meaning like maybe I think it's hidden because I think a lot of it's hidden because it's like ETs, whatever they are, whether they're interdimensional time travelers, outer space beings, whatever they are, I think are already infiltrated. Obviously, you see them all over the place. They're here already.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's whatever warring faction or elements of them. I feel like they're disclosed intentionally on purpose.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it would not behoove them to come out and tell everybody they're there for whatever they're doing, right? Totally. And then, I think there's a lot of us that they probably got their thumb on a lot of the shit that's going on too. I mean, because think about it, it's like, why isn't there any good, clear pictures of UFOs? Like, because they don't fucking want you to. You know? Yeah. They can make that happen if they can show up as an elf or a fairy or a 7 foot tall gray. They're not going to let you take a damn picture for God's sakes, like that's going to happen. Like there ain't no fucking way.
And it's like, when I, like, for instance, the unicorn story, when I tell everyone, take a picture of that. It's like, no, I didn't have my phone on me because there's no cell phone service anyway. It was dark and I was like getting some quinoa. It was like, I mean, yeah, we live in the 21st century. You have your phone all the time, but not when you're in the middle of nowhere.
But even if you took a picture, everybody would be like, yeah, you stuck a horn on a fucking...
I still have, like, I have like one friend who was like, hun, she's from Scotland. She's like, I believe you, but I think that what you're dealing, there's genetic anomalies. Like, I'm sure that horse just like had some sort of genetic thing, It was,
it's a mutation, right? Yeah.
It was a genetic mutation. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a good theory. Everybody has to come up with the plot. I mean, like when my wife saw my wife was with me both times when we saw the orange orbs and we saw the white orbs with my daughter, this past summer, and everything that you could think of, it's fucking Chinese lanterns, drones, like it's whatever, it's everything your brain can possibly go. It's not what I think I know what it is. It's something completely, plausible that I can come up with. It's this, and it's just like, nah. And I don't think you get, like I said, we were saying before, I don't think you really, until you have that experience, that you can kind of go, yeah, okay. So unless there's a mass sighting, like, something about the Phoenix Lights times a billion around the planet, it's not going to wake people up. I mean,
there are those schools that have seen him, or there's
right.
Fatima, or there's all kinds of mass sightings that have happened throughout time. And it's just, I think it's like a personal revelation or not.
Yeah, it's totally with that. And the Bledsoe story is amazing too. I don't know if you know Chris Bledsoe story. I mean, that's just unfolding. Easter's coming up. I think there's every time Easter happens, the lady comes and tells Chris Bledsoe some more stuff. And I don't know. I think there's a lot to that. I think there's a lot to unfold there with his story. I mean, I completely believe it, 100%.
Yeah, I would love to go out there and check it out if I ever could. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot going on there, that there's more to unpack than we can even possibly imagine. But I think that's happening all over. And he said it too. There's happening, other places and other people and other families,
Yeah,
so,
I've listened to Chris Bledsoe talk and stuff. And for me, I mean, like I've had so many paranormal experiences throughout my life. Like, I don't know why it's just not that impressive. It's not that I don't believe him. I believe all that, but I'm just saying, like, I don't feel, I have so many people I've talked to that tell me things that they don't want me putting on here, that, I guess, cause now I'm kind of like the weird girl who's like into aliens and stuff like that. So people tell, like, it's like on the down low, a lot of people like come to talk to me about stuff. And, people are getting contacted.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. Like, that's just what's happening. And I don't know if it's just for them or if it's for, like, I don't know, but the concept of, even though they did fly over the White House, but the concept of them landing on the White House lawn and like talking to, greet, that's the big thing. That's never happening. That's not, we can't look for our government to save us from our government. Like, that's not gonna be what's gonna happen here.
Yeah, no, totally. It's just going to be the individual thing, or maybe we do, like, whatever the vision you had was, maybe we do have people that rise above the vibrational state of others and that can uplift people and bring them along. And that's one of the big Masonic things is like, hey, look, you're doing this to make yourself better. And you're also tasked with making your society better, making your world better, making everything around you better. Like, that's your charge, right? You got to make yourself better. Okay. And everything else around you's got to come up too. And that's what I love about it, like we're talking about the Shriners and, the thing, just the thing for the kids. But I mean, there's so many different other programs, but you're tasked with individually.
I feel like Freemasons also, I mean, they get associated with Illuminati, which is an offshoot of them. And they get a lot of, I mean, for me, I've even had a little bit of impression like, oh, you're Freemason. Like, okay, it's like, so how do you deal with that? Because do you have to like correct people sometimes? Because there's a lot of negative associations with Masonry.
Yeah, there is. And I think it's a lot of it just because when you put any type of secrecy around anything, everybody's like, oh, it's bad, And Illuminati, I mean, that's just like a catch-all word that they threw in. If you check out some of the stuff we did with John Warner the Fourth, I'll send you some of those links, but yeah, he kind of brought that up too. It's just like, it's just, they made that, that was the thing, Bavaria, like, I don't know what years, but it wasn't we think about now as like the globalist elites, the 13 ruling families and all that stuff. They don't call each other Illuminati. They don't believe in that. And everybody kind of thinks that's like a term, I think whenever you have a group of people that have secrets, you're going to think that there's something nefarious going on or something bad.
They're responsible, or they can be used as scapegoats, maybe.
Yeah, totally. And to be completely honest, I mean, I got into Freemasonry. I was like, I'm going to get in here and I'm going to tell everybody all this shit. I'm going to go in there and just like bust it all out. I'm gonna be like, hey, this is what's going on, and they're sacrificing goats and all this stuff is going on. And I got into it, and it was the best experience of my life. I got into it, and I was like, I have always been a Mason, and thank God I'm back. That's how I felt. It was like, this is great. It was such an enlightening thing, and it made me a better man, a better human. So to me, when you get into those things, it's just ignorance. It's just stigma. It's just, media, whatever, programming you come up with. None of that shit's happening. I can tell you. I mean, all the things that everybody says, all the,
right.
You're trying to take over the world.
Eyes wide shut kind of thing.
Or nowhere even close, not even 0.25%, right? There's not anything there. Like the rituals we go through, yes, they're secret. The things that we do, yes. But, but other than that, I mean, it's basically trying to make ourselves better and make the community better and make the world better. And I think that's really what we've been doing since, like, we call it time immemorial, since before recorded history, like before the Bible. Masons have been there, right? And I think we've been there to build. We're builders, right? I don't know if that's the builder race. That's kind of crazy. I just thought about that when you're talking about, but we've been there to help Masons for the historically, you had to have a pass to get to a different country. Like I couldn't just walk from here to France if I wanted to. Somebody had to say, you have to come here. You're allowed to come here, whatever. Masons were the first society community to be able to travel freely all over the world, because we'd show up and we'd build cathedrals. We'd build, the structures of renown. Yes, exactly. So we started as the stonemasons. Then we held the secrets of how we built those things secrets within our society, because if I just told everybody, then there'd be 500 people out there building cathedrals, right? So we kept that in, and we also, had the esoteric side of it as well, right? So there was both of those things. So you're free to move about the world at will. You were needed because of the secret you held for the building, and inside of that was all the other things that came along with it. So it's really cool to look at that, how that evolved from history, to see where we're at today. And to be honest, there's not a lot of us anymore. I mean, Masonry is really dying. There's a lot of people that,
do you think that's just kind of how religion's dying, or do you think, or is it like you can't find people to recruit, or people don't stay, or what?
Well, I mean, there's no recruiting. I mean, that's the thing. Everybody thinks, recruiting, if you want to be a Freemason, you have to ask a Freemason. That's how it is. If somebody wants to be a Freemason, they have to ask one. To be one, ask one is one of the catchphrases or whatever. But honestly, I mean, that's what it is. I mean, we can't go out like, hey, we think you should be a good Freemason, because that's just not how it works. We're not the Jehovah's Witness. We're not like beating on the doors going, you need to be a Freemason. No, it's like, you can come to us, and then there's a vetting process and all that stuff, and we let people in. But it's just like before, in previous generations, it was more patriarchal, I guess would say. It was like, my great grandfather was a Mason, his father was a Mason, now I'm going to be. Right. And there was a certain part of time, that I would say there was like, fuck that, I'm not going to do what my dad did. I don't want to be a part of that shit, just to not do it, because to be whatever, But I think there's a little bit of a renaissance coming on. To people like coming back to it or whatever. I'm like, nobody in my family was a Mason that I'm aware of at all on either side forever. So it's interesting that I became one, but I think there's a lot of people that are just kind of going, like you and I, that are just kind of waking up to things going, well, what else is out there? What else can I do? Where's my part in all of this? And I think that Masonry does kind of fill that in a lot of people, but no, I think there's needs to be more of us, to be honest, but we're not out there like running the world or, starting the new world order or controlling that shit. I guarantee you that's not happening.
No, but I mean, like I have this like, just this notion that like magic was here, left, and I feel like it's coming back. Like, and magic, I mean, whether that's telepathy or like, I don't know in what form, but yeah, there's more to, we are being repressed in a big way. And I feel like a lot of us are kind of like going, nope, something more, something else is going on. And I don't know, I feel that really viscerally. So like I think that's cool. And like, that's good that you're being a really good spokesman for the Masons. The other good spokesman for the Masons is Randall Carlson. Have you ever looked into him?
I've heard the name a couple of times. I think somebody hit me up.
He's a big young Adrias guy. He's a geologist who's good friends with Graham Hancock, and he's been on a bunch of Joe Rogan programs. He has his own podcast too, but he's, he gets down and really interested in, he shows like all the where potential solar flashes or meteorites would have crashed and what it did to the soil. And like, he's really, really hands-on about, there was a pre-existing ancient civilization that was big and then it got destroyed. And this is the physical evidence that we can show and prove. And so, yeah. And he's a Mason and he talks really good about it as well. So. Yeah.
And Scott Wolter, I don't know if you're Scott Wolter, is a Mason too, from America on the Earth. And, he's a big geologist. Yeah. And he's a Knights Templar. He's a Mason as well. And, actually, Scott was contacted by somebody in the government recently, and who was a Mason, believe it or not, in a higher level of government, and said that is actually tapped Scott to help with disclosure, believe it or not. There's a couple there's a couple interviews that I've listened to where Scott talks about that, and this guy is called Holden, and that's his his made up name or whatever, right? But supposedly he's a Mason. Supposedly, vetted himself with Scott, and he's asked Scott to help with the disclosure. And like Scott has said in a couple of interviews, like 5 years ago he asked me about aliens and all that shit, and I'd tell you like I don't think about it at all. I don't even care about it. But because of his background and all this stuff, so I think he's going down that rabbit hole right now too. So I think there's a thing with Masons too. Like we obviously have to keep secrets with each other. We keep secrets of our fraternity, but we also keep oaths to each other to keep secrets. To to share things that we wouldn't, under penalty of some heinous death that we wouldn't reveal, right? So I think there's that kind of thing that is a big.
Because in a lot of ways, I feel like your knowledge back in like Salem witch trials would have made you a witch, in some ways. Like if you're talking about astrology and Hermetica and this kind of stuff, there was a period in time where that would have got you burned.
Well, so, I'm going to bring this up. There's a couple of different countries still on Earth right now that if I was wearing this ring, they would pull me into somewhere and they potentially put me in jail and kill me for being a Mason. That's still a thing at different parts on the planet right now, that you would be same deal as the Salem witch trial. You can't even tell your own family that you're a Freemason, because you would be put in prison or killed in a couple different countries. So that still happens.
So is it controversial that you are public with your Freemasonry? Is that controversial at all?
Nobody's told me to shut up yet. Nobody's told me, John, turn it down or anything. The Rosicrucian thing.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, not that I know of. They haven't kicked me out, but no. The Rosicrucian thing is very, very small. And it's very, it's different, right? It's not the that's out there all the time, and I haven't been told to shut up. Obviously I will if I need to, but I haven't shared any secrets. Right. I haven't said anything that I wasn't supposed to. So no, I think that I'm trying to do what I think is best for humanity in my mind, and if that's not okay, but I also I've given the latitude to be able to do what I want. Like I said, I'm not out as a spokesperson for Freemasonry. I'm not out as a spokesperson for any of the independent bodies that I'm talking about. I'm out as just me. The things that I've happened to learn and the experiences that I've gained and the knowledge that I've gained from being a member is amazing. And the research on top of that, it's kind of like when you're walking through a different country and say you didn't know German, but then all of a sudden you learn German and you saw a sign on the wall and you're like, I can read that. I understand what that means now. And like, I can physically see that and it does something to me and I know what it means. For Freemasonry, for me, once I went through all these things, I said, wow, there's this shit everywhere. And now I know what it means. If that makes sense.
That's cool. Yeah. So it's like learning a hidden language.
Yeah, in a way. Through symbology, right? So it's symbology veiled in allegory, right? Or allegory veiled in symbology. I can't remember which way it goes, but it's something like that. So, symbols were the first thing on the planet to be able to, you recognize an emotion. You could look at a thing. Yeah, the first language. It was before written language. Manly P. Hall does a really good lecture on it, who's a Freemason, but basically, it was just symbols that were representative of physical things. It was a tree, and you knew what that meant on a spiritual, physical, cultural level, right? So then somehow you represented it, and then it turned into, after, I don't know, whatever iterations of it, now it's a T, and then it became the written language, and a lot of the meaning and depth of all that shit was lost when we started speaking in language and written language. When you can still look at a symbol at some point. I don't know if it's a square and compass. I mean, maybe that, but, or the eye, the all-seeing eye or something, but you can see different symbols throughout history, and somehow subconsciously it resonates with you, and you can kind of go, I know what that means. Like you were talking about the bricks that you saw, the like butter melting. You're like, I know that's not normal. And it did something to you.
Yeah. Well, this has been
awesome. Thank you. It has been fun.
Yeah, I've enjoyed having you on.